At the age of 7, my brother was busy chasing after the poor student, which led to me being abducted. By the time I finally made it back home, the poor student had already become the fake heiress. She was dressed in an expensive princess dress, pinching her nose and looking at me with disdain. She smells so bad, could she have some contagious disease? Just like that, the way my parents looked at me changed. And my brother's face was full of disgust. Why did you come back to disturb our lives? That's when I found out the fake heiress was also my sister-in-law. In the end, I was tortured to death by the fake heiress, while my parents and brother turned a blind eye. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the year I was 5 years old. That year, my parents' competitors targeted my brother, planning to kidnap him to force my parents into submission. This time, I chose to turn a blind eye. Useless brother and biased parents, go to hell together. 1. Little girl. Go tell your parents to give up on this project, or your brother will never come back. A middle-aged man wearing a baseball cap and a mask snarled at me. He was tightly gripping my brother in his hand. At that time, my brother was still just a kid, not tall, not big, and not malicious. The look in his eyes held no ferocity, only fear and pleading. The jeans embroidered with Ultraman were soaked in the middle. Big brother had wet his pants. I feigned a look of terror. Nodding vigorously like a chicken pecking at rice, the kidnapper seemed pleased, carrying brother away in a black Honda without even bothering to conceal the license plate. What kind of kidnapper does that? It smells so good. What kind of food is this? I sniffed the air and followed the sweet aroma right to the convenience store entrance, where the colorful cotton candy looked absolutely delicious. By the time I carried the cotton candy home, my parents had already returned, seeing me alone. They asked in confusion, "Where's your brother?" Taking small licks of the cotton candy, I said in a childish voice, "Dunno, cotton candy yummy, mommy daddy want some." The parents searched the house for a while, then combed through the neighborhood several times, but found no trace of their brother. They grew increasingly anxious and began calling the police. However, during that era without surveillance cameras, tracking down human traffickers was extremely difficult. The police officer questioned doubtfully, "Logically speaking, this shouldn't happen. Your neighborhood has excellent security. Why would human traffickers come here?" I've also asked the guards, and no suspicious individuals were seen entering or exiting. Mom collapsed on the floor wailing, while Dad pulled at his own hair in utter despair. I sat on the flower bed, swinging my little legs, watching them unblinkingly with wide eyes. They look so heartbroken and miserable now, so why were they completely unfazed when they watched me die before their eyes in our past life? Brother's life matters, but mine doesn't. In that case, let's all perish together. 2. That very day, missing person posters of my brother covered every street and alley, even appearing on TV with a 30,000 yuan reward. In those days, 30,000 yuan was a substantial amount of money. I had initially wondered if the kidnappers might come forward voluntarily. But once the missing person notices went up, I knew my brother wouldn't return. There was absolutely no chance of a private settlement anymore. Countless cases, big and small, occur every day, so my brother's case was temporarily set aside. In my past life, because I remembered the license plate number, the police easily found my brother, and his way of repaying me was letting me get kidnapped when I was 7. After all, we're siblings by blood, the same flesh and blood runs through our veins. It's only fair to return the favor, isn't it? Gradually revealing my intelligence and talents, I occasionally proposed profitable projects, helping them slowly emerge from the pain of losing their child. Dad happily ruffled my hair. Ningning is truly our lucky star, making Mom and Dad earn so much money. I giggled sweetly. I saw on TV how big the houses rich people live in are, with swimming pools in front. So impressive. Mom, Dad, let's also move to a bigger house. The neighbors would be wealthy too, and maybe we could network to earn even more money. I've heard people say that social circles are the most important thing. My parents were moved by my words and exchanged glances. Nowadays, our family earns enough to buy a villa, but they still hold on to thoughts of my brother. What if he comes back one day? So I need to sever their hopes and completely erase any trace of my brother from their lives. Dad nodded decisively and said, "All right. We'll listen to Ningning. Social circles are the most important." The next day, my parents went to look at houses and eventually spent a fortune buying a villa in the city center, where all the neighbors were either wealthy or influential figures. Being cute and sweet-tongued, I visited a few nearby households with cookies made by my mom and quickly became friends with them. As a result, my parents secured many projects. Although they didn't make much profit due to low pricing, they managed to build valuable connections. Seizing the opportunity, I suggested, "Mom and Dad, since you're both busy with work and I'm often lonely at home, how about adopting an older brother to keep me company?" Why do I need an older brother? Of course, it's to completely replace my brother's position in our parents' hearts, preventing them from giving him all the credit when he returns due to their favoritism towards sons over daughters. I won't let such a thing happen. No way, I'm doing all the work just for his benefit. Now, my parents dote on me and comply with my every wish, so they naturally won't refuse. 3. You can't choose your parents, so there's nothing you can do even if they're useless, but since this brother can be chosen freely, naturally one would pick someone who's completely satisfactory. I suffer from misanthropy towards foolishness, so those with poor intellect are absolutely unacceptable. Ugly ones won't do either, as they'd ruin my appetite. Most importantly, the personality must be good and the heart kind. I don't want a second ungrateful brother. After visiting all the orphanages in the city, I finally found one that met all the requirements, especially the fierce glint in his eyes, which particularly satisfied me. Having seen all kinds of people and ghosts in my past life, someone like him would be hard to control when grown up, but raising him from a young age brings a great sense of accomplishment. My brother is lost. Can you be my brother? I took out a white rabbit creamy candy from my pocket and placed it in his slender hand, saying in a soft, sweet voice, "I have lots of toys and snacks, and I can share half with you. Would you like to come home with me?" No little boy could resist such an adorable kid like me, and he was no exception. He carefully took the candy from my hand without touching me, as if afraid of dirtying my fingers, but I actively grabbed his hand and proudly showed him off to my parents. "Mom and Dad, I like this big brother." His parents were also very satisfied with his appearance. After asking a few more questions and finding him well-behaved and polite, they agreed. I gave him a new name, Lu Xingchen, because his eyes are as beautiful as stars. He lives in the room across from mine, with the same layout as my room. Originally, my parents had intended it for my older brother, but now he's living there. During meals, he also sat in the lower seat beside his father, the same place where his elder brother used to sit. Gradually, he truly took over his brother's position, and their parents instinctively included him in everything they did, even referring to him as our son in private conversations. At first, my elder brother was somewhat timid, but under my guidance, he became more outgoing and confident. However, perhaps it was because the first impression he had of me was that cute and vulnerable appearance, which left too deep a mark on him. This led to him genuinely protecting me like a little sister. Every night he would tell me fairy tales to lull me to sleep. He would pick the food I didn't like and eat it from his own plate. He even wished he could take the pain for me when I accidentally bumped into the table. 4. In the blink of an eye, high school began, and Lu Xingchen, wrapped in love, began to shine brightly, causing a stir the moment she stepped into the school. Although he was older than me, we were in the same class. This was both our parents' wish and his own, so he could better protect me. At the same time, an old acquaintance, Gu Jiejia, reappeared, the very culprit who had tortured me to death in my past life, the fake heiress. She appeared delicate and fragile, with every smile and frown exuding an air of pitiable charm, especially her watery eyes that made it hard not to feel compassion for her. "Xingchen, look in the 3 o'clock direction. Is that girl pretty?" Lu Xingchen followed my gaze and saw Gu Jiejia wearing a white dress with long, straight black hair. He didn't understand my meaning and said seriously, "I don't know, maybe she's the type boys like." "She's not just the type boys like, she's the type my brother is utterly infatuated with. The kind he'd watch his own sister suffer in agony for, leaving her neither able to live nor die." I licked my lips and asked, "Do you like this type?" A flicker of disgust flashed in his eyes, yet his expression remained composed. "I don't like it," I scoffed. "Then what kind do you like?" He looked down at me, raised an eyebrow, and said, "I like the spoiled, willful, domineering, and unreasonable ones." Me, Gu Jiejia and I were classmates. She wasn't admitted through regular exams, but as a special enrollment student. Specifically, a financially disadvantaged student. Every year, elite schools admit a few financially disadvantaged students to showcase their tradition of not discriminating based on family background. In reality, these students often end up being bullied here, since most attendees are either heirs or children of the wealthy. In my past life, because my older brother protected her, she was able to swagger around here without fear. But this time Big Brother isn't here. Let's see how she acts up. The first class was self-introductions. Everyone took turns going on stage confidently without stage fright, having experienced big occasions before. Naturally they weren't afraid. When it was Gu Jiejia's turn, her little face flushed red as she hesitated shyly, too embarrassed to go on stage. I am too shy. The teacher smiled and said, "It's alright, it's everyone's first time meeting, don't be nervous. Let's give a warm round of applause, classmates." The students started clapping one after another. Seeing that I wasn't moving, Lu Xingchen also refrained from applauding, but after 3 rounds of applause, everyone was growing impatient. Gu Jiejia still hadn't stepped onto the stage, biting her lips, her face turning even redder, with tears welling up in her eyes. What a useless thing, can't even handle the spotlight. 5. After this incident, everyone naturally distanced themselves from Gu Jiejia, finding her utterly repulsive. Crying at the drop of a hat, outsiders would think someone bullied her. How disgusting, exactly, because of her time wasting. We didn't even have time to go to the bathroom after class, so annoying. When assigning seats later, I really hope I don't get paired with her. Such bad luck would ruin my aura. Everyone's voices weren't lowered, and Gu Jiejia heard everything clearly, so she ran to the teacher's office to report it. Such behavior might be tolerable in an ordinary school, but in a prestigious academy, it's practically asking for trouble. Classmate Gu Jiejia has special circumstances, so everyone should be more accommodating towards her. Is there any classmate willing to sit with Gu Jiejia? She's quite timid, and with someone looking after her, she'll quickly adapt to the school environment. After waiting for a long time without any classmates raising their hands, what came instead was a wave of mocking laughter. The teacher cleared her throat lightly and asked, "Classmate Gu Jiejia, who would you like to sit with?" At this point, Gu Jiejia didn't hesitate anymore. Pointing at Lu Xingchen, she said, "I want to sit with Brother Xingchen." The way she called him Brother Xingchen was extremely coy, making those who didn't know them think they were very close. The boys erupted in teasing sounds, while the girls all looked utterly disdainful. The teacher nodded. "Alright then, student Lu Xingchen. You'll sit with Gu Jiejia from now on. Take good care of her." Lu Xingchen refused directly. "Sorry teacher, I'm allergic to tears." The classroom fell silent for a few seconds before erupting in laughter. I also curled my lips slightly. His words could be quite sharp-tongued. The teacher frowned slightly, knowing it was an excuse, but since he was nominally the heir of the Lu group, he didn't dare offend him. Thus, he had no choice but to find a girl who seemed more approachable to sit with. After class, Gu Jiejia came looking for Lu Xingchen. She said pitifully, "Brother Xingchen, I didn't mean to put you in a difficult position earlier. I just thought you looked very familiar, as if I've seen you somewhere before." No wonder my brother was completely wrapped around her finger in our past life. Her methods are indeed effective. Standing firm on stage satisfies a guy's vanity. If that doesn't work, then lower your guard in private and play the emotional card. An ordinary guy would probably be won over by this, but Lu Xingchen remains unmoved. "Are you a pigeon, calling me brother every other word?" Gu Jiejia's eyes reddened again as she bit her lip. "Brother Xingchen, do you have some misunderstanding about me? Or did you hear someone speaking ill of me? I've had a tough family situation since childhood, and everyone looked down on me. I just want to make friends and not feel so lonely." Lu Xingchen scoffed. "Then you should try making friends with girls, shouldn't you?" Gu Jiejia blurted out. "Girls are too much trouble. I prefer hanging out with boys. It's more straightforward and enjoyable without all the scheming." 6. The classroom instantly erupted with a chorus of boos from the girls. This White Lotus clearly had some green tea bitch attributes. "Don't play the innocent fox with me. We're both old hands at this game." Lu Xingchen curled his lips in a cold smile. "I don't believe all women are as you described, except for you, of course." Even with her thick skin, Gu Jiejia couldn't stay any longer. Flushing red, she returned to her seat and burst into tears with her face buried in her arms. But no one went to comfort her. They all just laughed at her. What a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. Can't she see how obviously he's rejecting her, still throwing herself at him just to be humiliated? Who says otherwise? The heir to the Lu group is someone she could ever dream of. They say women are scheming, but hers takes the cake. Lu Xingchen appears gentle and refined on the surface, but who knew he'd be such an expert at spotting gold diggers? Propping my chin, I finished enjoying the spectacle before asking with a smile, "Xingchen, this is the first time I've seen you be so sarcastic." He unscrewed the thermos for me and gestured for me to drink. "The people you don't like, I don't like either." I took small sips of water and chuckled lightly. "Liar, you obviously didn't like her yourself." He raised an eyebrow. somewhat surprised. You noticed? I blinked and asked, why don't you like her? He pondered seriously for a moment. Her eyes are full of calculation and greed. Indeed, a brother chosen by oneself is far smarter than one with no choice. Gu Jiejie began to be isolated and ostracized, with no one speaking to her anymore. Even when she initiated conversations, people ignored her. They even sarcastically remarked, I'm a girl with deep schemes, you should find a guy instead. The boys sneered and said, we can't compare to the heir of the Lu group. You should go find him, logically. After reaching this point, one would usually stop making a fuss, attend classes obediently, and eventually be forgiven by everyone after some time, but her thought process was unusual. During the basketball game, she took the initiative to bring water to Lu Xingchen. Brother Xingchen, you played basketball so well. The whole school was watching, and boys from other classes were laughing and egging her on from the sidelines. It seemed like she was trying to emotionally manipulate Lu Xingchen. Or perhaps gain sympathy from everyone, since many students from other classes didn't know the full story. Lu Xingchen sneered, no matter how well I play, it's not for you to see. Take fewer glances. After taking a few steps, he turned back and added, I don't know how many good brothers you have, but I'm certainly not one of them. Please stop calling me that, thank you. With that, he walked straight toward me, noticing me lazily watching the commotion from the side. He snatched the half-drunk water bottle from my hand and took a sip. After finishing, he handed the empty bottle back to me and asked, were you looking at her or at me? I took the water bottle and teased with a smile, how do you manage to never take her bait? Lu Xingchen scoffed, do you think all men in the world are fools? Her intentions are so obvious, who would actually take the bait? Many did take the bait, like my brother in my past life, and even mom and dad. With all their experience reading people, how could they not see through such obvious tricks? There's only one reason. They thought she was more important than me. 7. After the basketball game, Lu Xingchen gained a fan club, all consisting of his little admirers. When we met in the restroom, I casually remarked, that girl from our class keeps pestering my brother every day, and he's utterly annoyed. How can a girl be so thick-skinned? No matter how he rejects her, it's useless. And it's seriously affecting my brother's studies. If only someone could stop her. Sigh. That afternoon, Gu Jiejie emerged from the bathroom completely drenched. She knew she had angered everyone and didn't dare report it to the teacher. I despise school bullying and have even helped rescue other girls before, but only when seeing Gu Jiejie being bullied do I feel an intense sense of pleasure. After being targeted for half a month, Gu Jiejie finally backed down and never dared to pester Lu Xingchen again, but Lu Xingchen began to frequently cross paths with Gu Jiejie, allowing others to continue misunderstanding, which led to everyone persistently bullying Gu Jiejie. Eventually, she proactively requested a class transfer from the teacher and moved to the grades underperforming class, finally putting an end to the turmoil. The underperforming class had a spoiled rich second-generation student who was handsome but had a wild lifestyle. After seeing Gu Jiejie enter the restroom, I leisurely followed her in with the other girls from our class. Qingyi is quite handsome, go ask him if he has a girlfriend for me. Wow, even our Miss Lu has developed feelings for someone. But he's really handsome and comes from a wealthy family, he must be hard to get. He looks so wild, but I really like that vibe. Exactly. I like him too, I think he's even more exciting than your brother. Soon Gu Jiejie started dating Qingyi, and she often flaunted their relationship in front of me. Every time I turned away to avoid bursting into laughter, she mistook it for sadness, which only made her more smug. Soon, the scandalous photos of Gu Jiejie and Qingyi began circulating within a small circle of male students. Coming from a family that owned entertainment venues, Qingyi was exposed to wilder scenes from an early age. He often engaged in group activities, accepting partners of all ages, his motto being pure thrill. While I was admiring the photos, Lu Xingchen appeared behind me, snatched my phone, and blushed furiously after just one glance. What do you think of these things? I chuckled lightly. You want to see too? Then let's watch together. After seeing the protagonist, Lu Xingchen silently returned the phone to me. 8. In the blink of an eye, Gu Jiejie had already undergone 6 abortions for Qingyi. The pitiful White Lotus image she once had completely vanished, replaced by smoking, tattoos, and skirts shortened to thigh-high length. A full-fledged delinquent girl. Meanwhile, Lu Xingchen and I were achieving better academic results, ranking first and second in our grade, the pride of teachers and classmates alike. Every year I would host a birthday banquet, inviting all my classmates to strengthen our bonds. while also providing a good opportunity for our parents' generation to network and explore collaborations. Many students at school considered it an honor to attend my birthday banquet. This was my coming-of-age ceremony, exceptionally grand, with several industry leaders in attendance. I prepared a grand gift for my parents. Mom, Dad, I've been searching for you so desperately. Just as my parents and the VIPs were toasting, the door suddenly burst open, and a heart-wrenching, sorrowful male voice cried out, "I've finally come home." After saying that, he sat on the ground and burst into tears, bald. Dressed in rags, with a fierce scar on his face, he didn't look like a good person, especially with the foul stench emanating from him. Everyone silently took a few steps back, and the melodious piano music came to a stop. Mom asked in confusion, "Who are you?" The older brother immediately looked up excitedly, with tears and snot running down his face, looking both pitiful and disgusting. "Mom, Dad, I'm Lu Qingjing, your son. Don't you remember me?" As he spoke, he tried to hug Mom, who instinctively took a few steps back because of the terrible smell, quickly covering her nose. I said with disgust, "Why do you smell so bad? Do you have some kind of contagious disease?" I threw back every word Gu Jiejia had said to him, without missing a single one. My brother's eyes turned bloodshot when he saw me, stepping forward to hit me. "Lu Yining, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have ended up like this." Lu Xingchen immediately shielded me, his expression icy as he said, "Don't bully my sister." I peeked out and said innocently, "Brother, stay away from him, he looks like an ex-convict. Did he just get out of prison?" Everyone silently took a few steps back. The older brother completely lost his temper, started overturning tables, and roared in anger, "How long have I been gone? You've already found someone to replace me. You're too much. I hate you." The security guards arrived in time and restrained the older brother. But this banquet was also forcibly interrupted. When they left, everyone had different expressions on their faces. What happened tonight would spread throughout the circle by tomorrow morning. The business deal that Mom, Dad, and the big shot were discussing also came to nothing in the end. Dad was so angry that he started throwing a tantrum as soon as they left. Couldn't he have come back at any other time? He had to show up now and completely humiliate us. Mom rubbed her temples, seemingly suffering from a headache caused by the earlier commotion. This child really came back at the wrong time. 9. The older brother, who had just finished showering and came downstairs, turned red with anger upon hearing this. "I'm your own flesh and blood. You don't care at all about how I made it back, how I've been all these years. I dreamed of our family reunion every night. How could you treat me like this?" A 6-foot-tall man sat on the floor wailing. Just how much grievance must he have endured? Unfortunately, because he had just embarrassed his parents so much, they not only didn't feel sorry for him, but also thought he was disgraceful and shameful. Dad waved his hand. "Enough. What kind of man cries at the drop of a hat? Since you're home, just stay put and don't go out making trouble." The older brother wiped his tears and snot with his sleeve, still sniffling, as he pointed at Lu Xingchen viciously. "Kick him out. Now that I'm back, keeping this replacement here just makes me sick." Before I could even speak, my parents said in unison, "No." My brother was so angry that his hands clenched tightly into fists, veins bulging on his forehead. "Mom, Dad, I'm your real son," my mother soothed. "We know, but Xingchen has gotten along very well with us all these years, and everyone likes him." Dad also added, "You should learn more from him." Hearing this, the older brother completely lost his temper and swung a fist intending to hit Lu Xingchen, who lightly sidestepped and perfectly dodged it. Extending his foot, he tripped the brother, but with the sofa blocking the view, their parents didn't clearly see this small move and only thought the brother had lost his balance. The brother fell so hard that his nose started bleeding, but instead of receiving any comfort, he was met with scolding. Dad cursed, "You disgraceful thing. If you keep making trouble, I'll throw you out." The older brother trembled with rage, but didn't dare to make a scene, because he realized this was no longer the home he remembered, and his parents no longer loved him. When resting at night, the older brother stared at Lu Xingchen's spacious room with venom in his eyes and said, "From now on, I'll sleep here, you go sleep in the guest room." With our parents absent, I dropped the act and sneered, "Brother, it seems you still haven't figured out your place in this family. During the time you were kidnapped, Brother Xingchen has long since taken your place, not just in our parents' affection, but also your inheritance rights." Brother Xingchen is handsome and outstanding. Not only does he excel academically, but he's also incredibly popular. The young ladies and gentlemen in our social circle all seek him out willingly. Do you really think your bloodline alone can compare to the benefits he's brought to the company? You'd better show some respect to brother Xingchen from now on, otherwise, once our parents grow old, you'll be thrown out and forced to return to that life of wandering and begging." Lu Xingchen stood quietly behind me, silent yet exuding an overwhelming aura of intimidation. Big brother was furious, erupting into helpless rage. He nearly threw something but restrained himself, terrified that dad might hear and actually kick him out, grinding his molars to dust. "Fine, just you two wait and see." 10. After escorting me back to my room, Lu Xingchen asked, "Do you really despise your brother?" I nodded. "Yes, I want to kill him." Lu Xingchen looked at me with a complicated expression, but didn't try to console me. I licked my lips. "Xingchen, don't you think Gu Jiejie and my brother are a match made in heaven?" After some thought, Lu Xingchen nodded. "A perfect match." I curled my lips. As expected of the brother I chose, he never questions any of my decisions. The weather turned cold, and the days of the Qin Group's desperate struggle finally came to an end, with bankruptcy declared. Naturally, there was no more money to play around with Gu Jiejie. When Qin Yi was around, Gu Jiejie was particularly arrogant, bullying many classmates. Now that she's lost her protector, everyone has started bullying her again. I arranged for people to corner her in an alley and beat her up. Then I played the hero and came to her rescue. Then it was only natural to invite her over to my place. Gu Jiejie, desperately needing a lifeline at this moment, naturally wouldn't refuse me, even going out of her way to flatter me in her words. I smiled gently. "Let bygones be bygones, let's be good friends from now on." Gu Jiejie nodded eagerly, afraid I might change my mind. I brought her a short skirt and told her to go take a shower in my brother's room. Since my brother had just moved in, his room was still empty and no different from a guest room. Coincidentally, my brother, who had gotten tired from playing games in the garden, had just returned to his room. 5 minutes passed, and it was still quiet inside. I spread my hands. "Xingchen, you lost." Lu Xingchen placed this month's allowance in my hand. "You understand human nature better than I do." I smiled faintly. "When it comes to human nature, you understand it better, but when it comes to the temperament of beasts, I understand it better than you." 11. That evening, Gu Jiejie stayed for dinner, reverting to her original White Lotus persona, docile and gentle. To top it off, I helped gild her image. Although Jiejie doesn't come from a privileged background, she studies exceptionally hard and refuses to yield to fate. She has a wonderful personality, and we all love spending time with her. Many guys are pursuing her too, but she has high standards and usually doesn't fancy ordinary guys. At this moment, Lu Xingchen also proactively picked up a spare rib for her. He said gently, "You can't eat spicy food, this one isn't spicy." Gu Jiejie was flattered, her brother's eyes filled with determination, while I pursed my lips and struggled to suppress the smile at the corners of my mouth. Soon, her brother started dating Gu Jiejie. Initially, their parents had some reservations, feeling that Gu Jiejie's family background was too humble to match their son, but her brother insisted, believing that true love was what mattered most. As he said this, he provocatively glanced at Lu Xingchen, who lowered his head with a sorrowful expression. Thus, the elder brother became even more resolute, unwavering until death. In the end, mom and dad finally nodded in agreement. Gu Jiejie, who had undergone 6 abortions, had a highly fertile constitution and soon became pregnant again. Dad was especially delighted. "Great, truly my son, the Lu family lineage will continue. If it's a boy, I'll reward Gu Jiejie with 1 million yuan. Gu Jiejie's eyes instantly lit up. "Thank you, uncle." Mother looked tenderly at her belly, her eyes also filled with joy. I seized the opportunity to say, "Since Jiejie is also pregnant, how about holding a grand wedding? It would also be a good chance to introduce Big Brother to everyone." Naturally, they happily agreed and immediately scheduled the wedding for the end of the month. While passing by the study at night, I overheard my parents whispering, "Qingjing has been wasting his years outside and can't inherit the family business. Although Yining is outstanding, she's still a girl after all, and the company can't be handed over to her. If this child is a boy, he'll inherit the company in the future. If it's not a boy, we'll keep having children until we get one." Although the company has reached its current scale thanks to Yining, it's just her fate not being born a boy. I curled my lips. Just like in my past life, they still favor sons over daughters. Then I'll send them another grand gift. 12. Although the wedding between brother and Gu Jiejie was somewhat rushed, every item used was exquisitely luxurious. I marveled, "Xingchen, this wedding is truly beautiful." Lu Xingchen glanced at the USB drive I was fiddling with and chuckled. And yet you're still planning to destroy it, facing my provocatively toasting elder brother. I also raised my drink and clinked it with his from a distance, taking a small sip, smiling meaningfully. I said, otherwise they won't learn their lesson. The wedding march slowly began to play as my brother and Gu Jiejie walked hand in hand, making a barely passable handsome couple. Both my father and mother took turns giving speeches on stage, reading from heartfelt scripts that brought tears to their eyes. Lu Xingchen peeled a white rabbit milk candy for me. I chuckled softly, what's this for? I'm not a kid anymore. He pushed the candy to my lips, sweet. I mischievously licked it with my tongue and blinked. It really is sweet. He reached out and pinched my cheek, then shoved it straight in, rubbing my still aching cheek. I turned and headed backstage. Ah. A wolf pup will always be a wolf pup. It can never become a lapdog. After entering backstage, I spoke directly, you go attend the banquet, I'll handle the rest, the staff member cheerfully said, alright. Just as the brother and Gu Jiejie exchanged rings and leaned in for a kiss, the loving video on the electronic screen behind them switched to footage of Gu Jiejie and Qinyi. The audience instantly erupted in gasps of shock. The brother and Gu Jiejie, thinking everyone was cheering them on, became even more enthusiastic. Everyone shouted loudly, look behind, look behind. The two who had just kissed turned around with smiles, thinking it was a surprise prepared by their parents. Just a second ago, Gu Jiejie thought she was at the peak of her life, but the next moment she felt a chill run through her body, as if falling into an ice cave. The smile on her brother's face instantly froze, and he snarled, good, so you've been lying to me all along. Gu Jiejie's face turned deathly pale as she trembled and said, let me explain. Her brother punched Gu Jiejie hard in the face, then kicked her stomach. Tell me now, whose bastard is in your belly? Gu Jiejie's snow-white dress was instantly stained red with blood. Writhing in pain, she couldn't even make a sound, but her brother, blinded by rage, continued beating and kicking her mercilessly. Someone in the audience wanted to go up and break up the fight, but the brother was acting like a madman at that moment. When our parents came out of the restroom and saw this scene, they hurried onto the stage to intervene, but were instead pushed away by the brother. Mom hit her head against a pillar, blood gushed out immediately, and she fainted from shock. Dad was also punched by the brother, knocking out his front teeth. Even 4 security guards couldn't restrain the frenzied brother. It wasn't until the police arrived that he was finally subdued. The brother was taken to the police station, while Mom, Dad, and Gu Jiejie went to the hospital. 13. Gu Jiejie's child miscarried, her spine was fractured, 8 ribs were broken, and she was in resuscitation for 7 hours. Although she survived, she will need to lie in bed for the rest of her life. For easier bowel movements, she cannot wear pants, living without any dignity. The mother had a mild concussion, but it's not a serious issue. The father had 2 porcelain fused to metal dental crowns implanted. I sat on the flower bed, swinging my legs, staring at them with wide, unblinking eyes. Now, I thought my parents would hire the best lawyer to reduce my brother's prison sentence by a couple of years, but they acted as if they never had this son. Oh, so they only feel the pain when they're the ones getting hurt. After the college entrance exams, I became the top science student, while Lu Xingchen scored 1 point less than me. I grinned widely, flashing my white teeth, and surprisingly he didn't seem annoyed at all. How embarrassingly my parents behaved at my brother's wedding last time is exactly how joyfully they're smiling at my college celebration now. They've finally realized I'm their only true pride. After graduation, I inherited my parents' company. Initially, I planned to scrap it and sell it as waste, destroying their life's work, but there was just too much money involved. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Being the CEO is actually quite comfortable. Lu Xingchen became a professor because during a truth or dare game at a class reunion after the college entrance exams, they asked me what type of person I liked. I couldn't keep my mouth shut and said, I like the refined but wicked type, like a professor. The classmates erupted in screams. From then on, Lu Xingchen started wearing gold-rimmed glasses, with white shirts as his signature look. Baffling. 14. Gu Jiejie went insane. I arranged it, then had her committed to a mental institution. My brother had a terrible time in prison. I hired several thugs to take turns serving him daily. He eventually swallowed a toothbrush and killed himself. They say he died in agony, muttering my name and some strange words about rebirth. I've been thinking about how to arrange things so my parents wouldn't get their hands dirty, yet still make them suffer. But in the end, they beat me to it. They got hit by a truck while driving out. both seriously injured. I comforted the truck driver. I know you didn't mean to, life's hard for you too, you don't have insurance for the truck, right? Forget it then, no need for compensation, I'll even fix your truck for you. Everyone calls me the most conscientious businessman. I turned to the doctor and said, donate all the usable tracheas for my parents, and donate their bodies too. The doctor, who initially thought resuscitation was possible, swallowed their words at the last moment. Okay, thank you, really thank you so much. On behalf of the patients who will receive help, I express my sincere gratitude. I smiled as I accepted all the praise and honors. It was what I deserved. Stepping out of the hospital, I saw Lu Xingchen waving at me from his newly bought sports car. The weather is really nice today. Story 2, Shenke missed Gu Huan for half of his life, while I clung to half of his wealth and pestered him for half of my life. It wasn't until I was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 50 that I realized that all the things in the past were just like a dream that came to nothing. If I could live my life again, I only wish that we could part ways amicably and each find our own happiness. 1. On the day I received the cancer diagnosis report, I somehow burst into laughter. When I was young, I was unwilling to let go, unwilling to be a witness to the love between the two of them, so I pestered them for half of my life. I got myself so angry that I fell ill. Now, looking back, all those things in the past were just like a dream that came to nothing. In the face of life and death, all love and hate are just trifles. On my 50th birthday, I made a wish: if I could go back to my 20s. I don't want to be with Shenku anymore. I buried this wish in my heart, and when I opened my eyes, I smiled and took the flowers that Shenku handed me. No one didn't envy the love between Shenku and me. We went from wearing school uniforms to wedding dresses, supported each other through thick and thin, started from scratch, and jointly created the brand Jingning. I've been acting for half of my life, and in the end, I almost believed that we really liked each other. Only by deceiving myself could I somehow make it through the days. I'm stubborn. I'd rather have a bad life myself than fulfill their love, so we could only keep acting, and it went on for half of our lives. It was just that day when Gu Huan went abroad to settle down, Shenku and I went to see her off together. Shenku stood on the platform of the plane, watching her back gradually disappear at the end. He stood there motionlessly, not knowing what he was thinking, and didn't come back to his senses for a long time. And I also stared at Shenku, watching him send off the person he loved the most with sadness in his eyes. The two people in love were now separated by the Pacific Ocean. It was like a real-life tragic love story, and I was the culprit. I thought of the words Shenku said: if that person isn't Gu Huan, then for me, it's all the same who I marry. So it's better to marry someone she likes, at least she'll be happy that way. These words kept echoing in my mind, and I suddenly felt like vomiting. I really rushed to the bathroom and vomited violently. It turned out that shit wrapped in sugar coating was still shit. I had deceived myself for a lifetime that it was sugar, but it was still shit. I suddenly felt that my past 30 years had been an absolute mess, a complete joke. A minute before blowing out the candles, I saw a post hashtag if you could go back in time, which year would you like to go back to? Hashtag. I thought that if I were to answer, I would go back to 1980. The day when Gu Huan encouraged me to confess my love to Shenku. On that day, Shenku agreed to my confession. I was too shy to look into his eyes. It was only many years later, when I saw the photo of that day, that I realized, in the photo, his eyes never landed on me from beginning to end. Instead, he looked at Gu Huan, who was laughing and cheering beside him, with sadness. If I'm destined not to marry you, then I'll marry someone you like. What a great love. After the birthday celebration, Shenku drove me home. I sat in the passenger seat without saying a word. This was the normal state between Shenku and me. We had zero communication and interaction in private, and we only talked when there were other people around. This was a Cold War that I unilaterally initiated and had lasted for 30 years. Shenku didn't ask why and just naturally accepted it all. I was curled up in my seat, scrolling through that post, when suddenly a strong light shone over. When the truck rushed towards us, Shenku instinctively turned the steering wheel and used his side to meet it. Even though he didn't love me, I couldn't help but admit that Shenku was a fairly qualified husband, and precisely because of this, I couldn't even hate him completely. So, a little bit of love, a little bit of hate, and a little bit of resentment merged into a thick, sticky mess that couldn't be stirred, making people feel sick. I just stared at Shenku expressionlessly until my consciousness fell into darkness. 2. When I woke up again, I had traveled back in time, but it wasn't back to my 20s, it was back to my 30s, sometimes fate is like this, it won't let you get what you want so easily, yet it won't completely block your path either. That year, I had just become pregnant with my daughter. That year, Gu Huan had just gotten divorced. That year, I finally woke up from the beautiful dream that Shenke loved me. On September 18th, Shenke's birthday, I originally wanted to tell him the good news of my pregnancy as his birthday gift. When I arrived at the company excitedly, I heard the words that would torture me countless times in the future. Fate was so unpredictable, and I was back at this moment again. This time I seemed so calm, however, when I heard those words. My heart still ached dully. If that person isn't Gu Huan, then for me, it's all the same who I marry, so it's better to marry someone she likes. At least she'll be happy that way. This time, I didn't turn around and run away, so I heard Shenke's next words, Yuntang has suffered a lot by following me. I won't do anything. I still remembered that day. I left the company alone and wandered outside for a long time. I didn't go home until it was dark. People of my mother's generation always said that turning a blind eye and pretending not to see would make it through a lifetime. How many men in this world have one family at home and another outside, yet they still live well? I was raised by my mother, and her influence was inevitably imprinted in my thoughts. At that time, all I could think about was giving the child in my belly a complete family. It took me an afternoon to convince myself. My father passed away early, and my mother raised me alone. Life was not easy for us, an orphan and a widow. Because I didn't have a father, I suffered a lot of grievances, so I didn't want my child to suffer the same way. Shenke was a person with a high sense of morality. He wouldn't do anything substantial. As long as I could endure countless disgusting moments, as long as I pretended not to know anything, we would still be a good couple and good parents. In this way, at least my child could have a complete family. Both sets of parents could be at ease, and the company wouldn't be in turmoil. At that time, I considered everyone, but I didn't consider myself. I thought I was great and had once been immersed in this sense of sacrifice, until one day, my daughter Shenning said to me, Mom, you don't have to smile when you don't want to. I've always wanted you to be happy, but I don't know how to make you happy. Even if my schoolwork is always the first in the class. You'll only be happy for a while and then quickly become depressed again. It turned out that those who love you can tell that you're not happy. In these years when I forced myself to be happy, my daughter Shenning had also been bearing the same pressure as me. I thought I was doing the best for my daughter, but I never asked her if she wanted it. It was only many years later that I realized that only when you truly love yourself can you have the ability to love others. An unhappy mother can't raise a happy daughter. This might be the reason why Shenning has been working nonstop and always been so anxious all these years. 3. I touched my belly that hadn't shown the pregnancy yet and said softly, this lifetime, I will be a happy mother and raise you to be the happiest baby in the world. In my previous life, after I convinced myself, I told Shenke about my pregnancy, and this matter completely put an end to Shenke's thoughts, but this time, I didn't want to do that. My child shouldn't be a tool. When I went to the hotel, Shenke's birthday party had already started. It was his 30th birthday, and it happened to be during the booming development stage of the company, so the party was held very grandly. Gu Huan was also there. After the divorce, she had lost a lot of weight and didn't smile as much. Her thin body swayed in the Chinese-style cheongsam. She stood beside Shenke, and the two of them stood side by side at the center of the crowd, looking very well matched. When she saw me coming, Gu Huan seemed a bit at a loss and wanted to give her position to me. Shenke instinctively grabbed her sleeve and explained dryly, Gu Huan is wearing thin clothes, and the air conditioner can't reach here. She had always been the center of attention, as long as the focus was not on her for a moment. It seemed to make people feel sorry for her. I smiled and walked forward. Standing on the other side of Shenke, it's okay, you can just stand here. We haven't seen each other for a long time, and it's convenient for us to talk. When the cake was pushed in, the waiter naturally handed the cake to Gu Huan, and she naturally took it. Compared to me, Gu Huan seemed more like the hostess of this party. When Gu Huan smiled, her eyes were as sweet as crescent moons. While singing the birthday song, she walked towards Shenke step by step. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to School Hunk Shen. Boss Shen, who was very competent and capable in the business world, rarely showed a bit of the awkwardness of a young lad. What school hunk? I'm already old. Gu Huan dipped a little cream and smeared it on the tip of Shenke's nose, with a bit of playfulness in her smile. You'll always be young in my eyes. I had never seen Shenke so happy before. There was a smile between his eyebrows and eyes. At the age of 30, In the prime of his life, his business was booming, and the girl he liked the most during his adolescence was by his side. This was Shinka's golden age. The moment the crystal lamp went out, the candle flames flickered on the cake. Shinka closed his eyes and lowered his head to make a wish. Was he wishing for such a day every year, or for lovers to finally get married? Anyway, I wasn't in his wish. My heart ached. It was as if Yuntang at the age of 30 and my body was feeling sad. It took me a long time to recover. In fact, it was countless such moments that gradually dragged people down. I once thought I could endure it, but later I realized that I had overestimated myself. 4. When the party ended, Shinku was a bit drunk and almost fell when going downstairs. Gu Huan hurriedly went to help him, but he instinctively pushed her away and put his arm around my shoulder. In these years, since we started from scratch, we had seen too many dirty tricks at drinking parties. As a result, Shinku became more alert when he was drunk and would only feel at ease when he saw me. I saw Gu Huan's slightly disappointed look and comforted her. He's drunk. I'm afraid he didn't see clearly who you are. When I finally let go of my obsession with Shinku, I became more open-minded. It could be regarded as a repayment for Shinku finally blocking the car for me in my previous life. One was disgusted for a lifetime, and the other couldn't get the love they wanted for a lifetime. It's hard to say who was more pitiful between me and Shinku. Sure, Yuntang, are you really willing? Gu Huan stood in the shadow, and I couldn't see her expression clearly. Soon, she smiled and waved at me, as if the words just now were just a dream. I'll go first. See you next time. This was the first time she clearly told me her intention. In my previous life, she hated me many times, but I had blocked her attempts without showing it. Regarding Gu Huan, I never knew what attitude to take towards her. When we were in college, my family was very poor. Gu Huan had a good family background, good looks, and a good personality. She was like a little sun shining on everyone. Everyone included Shinku and me. In the coldest winters, I got through them by picking up her clothes, although she didn't really look up to me. For example, the shoes my mother made with her own hands. She smiled and accepted them on the surface, but they soon appeared in the trash can. However, when judging someone, we should look at their actions rather than their thoughts. People's hearts can't stand scrutiny. During those warm winters, I finally owed her a favor and remembered her kindness. So later, after she got divorced and Shinku took extra care of her, I had no reason to say anything. So I was disgusted for a lifetime and trapped myself for a lifetime. Since I had already decided on this path, I had to swallow the sand and blood. Only now did I realize that sunk costs shouldn't be included in the decision-making. 5. The autumn wind blew again at night. Shinku rubbed his fluffy hair against my chest. I carried Shinku to the car with some difficulty. Every time he drank, he would be particularly dependent on me. In these years, since the business had just started, there were always many drinking parties. Some honey water for sobering up was always prepared in the car. After drinking a cup of honey water, Shinku seemed a bit more sober. But not completely. He looked at me with a slightly aggrieved expression, curled up in the passenger seat like a stray puppy. Where's my birthday gift? On every birthday of Shinku's, I would prepare a gift for him, including those in the past that I hadn't participated in. He, like me, came from a poor family. When survival was the top priority, gifts became a luxury. Sometimes I wondered if girls were born knowing how to love. Just like when I was a child, no one ever gave me a birthday gift. But I still wanted to make up all the gifts for Shinku. From the first year to the 30th year, I thought of the pregnancy test sheet lying quietly in my bag. This was originally the gift I prepared for him on his 30th birthday. Shinku frowned, thinking that I was angry because of what happened today. Gu Huan just got divorced and is feeling depressed. Today on my birthday, I just wanted to make her happy. Sorry, Yuntang, I didn't consider your feelings. I looked up at him, and he looked at me with full sincerity. Shinku was always like this. He could keenly sense the things that made me unhappy, apologize neatly, but still do the same thing next time. He spared no effort to help her with the divorce lawsuit, rented a house for her, found her a job, and when she was depressed, he raised a little dog with her. I still remembered that the dog's name seemed to be Zuitsui, and its nickname was Ai, which meant recalling the past. In order not to make me suspicious, he would ask me to go with him for all these things, so I was troubled whether I went or not. Because of these things, Shinku and I had many arguments. Later, we finally stopped arguing and also stopped talking. After giving birth to Anning, we started sleeping in separate rooms. And the Cold War lasted for nearly 20 years. Shinku still looked at me persistently. with his palms facing upwards, as if he wouldn't give up until he got the gift today. When he was drunk, he was like an unreasonable child. I slapped his hand away and, under his aggrieved expression, smiled and said, "Your gift hasn't arrived yet. Wait a few more days, and I'll give it to you." I once thought that people who understood each other were very suitable to be together. And Shin-Ke and I were the same kind of people. We were from the same hometown and had both been admitted out of that poor small mountain village. We had the same poor family background, the same awkwardness, the same inferiority complex, and the same self-esteem. Most of the time, with just a glance, we could understand what each other was thinking. Later, I realized that people like us needed someone like a little sun to dispel all the dark corners in our hearts. Gu Huan was that little sun. A divorce agreement should be the best gift for Shin-Ke. 6. Everything developed just like in my previous life. Gu Huan's divorce process wasn't smooth. Her ex-husband became an alcoholic after going bankrupt and would look for Gu Huan from time to time when he was drunk, so Shin-Ke would always receive Gu Huan's calls at various times, including but not limited to, when sleeping, when eating, when having a meeting. Today, when the meeting was halfway through, Shin-Ke's big mobile phone rang again. I didn't know how many times this had happened these days. This time, the supplier was a big order that we had always wanted to secure. It took a lot of effort to have this meeting. The meeting was interrupted by the successive phone calls, and Manager Chin showed an unhappy expression. "If your company doesn't have the sincerity, we don't need to discuss this order anymore." I quickly smiled and tried to soothe the supplier's emotions. The Longjing tea picked before the rain. The first batch of new shoots, knowing that Manager Chin loves tea, I specially prepared it. "We're just thirsty from the discussion. Why don't we take a break?" Shin-Ke looked absent-minded. He looked at me, hesitated for a long time, and then said, "Gu Huan was almost hit by a car just now and sprained her ankle. She's all alone in the hospital." I suddenly found it a bit ridiculous, without family, relatives, or friends. She still called an old classmate of many years. Sure enough, people in love were like fools, and even a smart person like Shin-Ke was no exception. I curled the corner of my lips and adjusted his tie for him. "It's okay, I'm here, you can go." He didn't care about making money, but I did. After all, I wanted my daughter to be a rich second generation. In the end, I successfully secured the business. By the way, I asked someone to estimate the company's cash flow and the assets under mine and Shin-Ke's names. I also consulted a lawyer to find out how much I could get if we got a divorce. In fact, I have more talent for doing business than Shin-Ke. I have a sharper vision, can see things more accurately, and am more ambitious. In my previous life, there were many opportunities for the company to double its assets, but they were all missed because he preferred to stay in his comfort zone. However, later I retreated to the rear. I gave birth to Anan, and Shin-Ke's mother fell seriously ill. Someone was needed at home. There needed to be someone to do the logistical work, and so, naturally, that person was me. The man takes care of external affairs, and the woman takes care of internal affairs. Everyone said so and did so at that time, and I didn't realize there was anything wrong with it. I didn't have much interest in the company. It was an antique that would eventually be eliminated by the times. In my previous life, I always wanted to carry out the company's reform, but I was restricted by various reasons. Now that I have a chance to live my life again, I have the ability and confidence to take my company to the next level. 7. After coming out of the hospital, Shin-Ke said he wanted to arrange a job for Gu Huan and asked me if there were any suitable positions. I thought for a while and said, "Aren't you in urgent need of a secretary? I think Gu Huan is quite suitable." Shin-Ke looked at me in surprise and asked hesitantly, "Is this appropriate?" I comforted him. "What's inappropriate about it? We're all old classmates and our own people. You can rest assured when using her." Shin-Ke suddenly frowned and looked at me for a long time, then said, "Yuntang, you seem to have changed." I smiled and replied, "Everyone changes." So Gu Huan officially joined the company. Every day, she dressed beautifully and followed Shin-Ke, mainly responsible for some reception work. Many times, she was mistaken for the boss's wife by customers. She smiled shyly, and Shin-Ke didn't explain. People in the company were spreading the word that Gu Huan would be the next boss's wife and subtly warned me to be careful. I just smiled and didn't care. After all, I didn't care about the title of boss's wife. What I wanted to be was the boss. Until the last moment of my previous life, Shin-Ke didn't have any substantial actions. I even thought that if something really happened between them, it might be more beneficial for me in terms of property division in the divorce. when I no longer dwell on love, affection, and responsibility, my world suddenly became much clearer. Sometimes I even deliberately created an environment for them, hoping that they wouldn't let down my good intentions. 8. Shenku was busy helping Gu Huan with the divorce lawsuit, and I was even busier than him. In my previous life, a college student came to the company to seek investment. I saw his potential at a glance, but since I couldn't make the decision, it eventually came to nothing. Later, it turned out that I was right. He held his patent and became a well-known tech tycoon later. In this life, I was afraid that there would be any variables, so I took the initiative first. I walked around near the university town for several days in a row, and finally, I found Jiangqing. The person who would later be on the list of the wealthy was still just a poor student who couldn't even get enough to eat. I sat in front of him and said straightforwardly, "I hope to invest in your patent. You will have full decision-making power in the company, and I will provide you with all the necessary resources and talents." Jiangqing looked up at me in a daze, swallowed the steamed bun in his mouth, and burped. I looked at him eagerly, waiting for his next words. After a while, he said quietly, "Do I look easy to deceive?" I was taken aback for a moment and then smiled. "I can take you to my company to have a look." Jiangqing was very defensive. I accompanied him to visit the company and the Science and Technology Park for an afternoon, and then he finally believed me. Securing Jiangqing's patent laid a solid foundation for my business blueprint. When I got home, it was already very late. It seemed that Shenku was waiting for me. He had fallen asleep on the sofa and only got up when he heard the commotion. "Why did you come back so late?" I casually found an excuse to perfunctorily answer him. Shenku followed me attentively. "Gu Huan has had too many things going on recently. Thank you for your hard work with the company's affairs these days." It was nothing more than an apology for ignoring me these days and a thank you for my hard work. There are some men in this world like this. They understand everything but don't change anything. His warm breath coiled around my neck, and his voice was hoarse. I held down his restless hand and said coldly, "I'm very tired." He turned over, and there was a hint of irritability in his tone. "Gu Huan just got divorced. She helped us a lot in the past. Now that we're doing well, it's normal to give her a hand. Without her, we might not have made it. Yuntang, we can't be ungrateful." In my previous life, I was trapped by the word kindness and endured everything, suffering losses everywhere. I was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. Many words can hurt you only if you care about the person who said them, but I no longer cared about Shenku. His words were just like the buzzing of flies in my ears. 9. My belly was getting bigger day by day, and my secretary, Xiao Lu, even asked me if I had gained some weight these days. I must get divorced before it's discovered and complete the independence of my personal company. If possible, I must obtain clear evidence of Shenku's infidelity, so the school anniversary became the best opportunity, remembering the past, reflecting on the hardships, and then getting drunk and losing one's senses. It would all happen naturally. I specially prepared a white shirt for Shenku. Although he was already 30 years old, he looked a bit like a college student when wearing it. In college, this was the set of clothes he wore most often. He would hold a book and read in the pavilion, and there was still a steamed bun in his hand. He was good-looking. Even though the shirt had been washed until it turned yellow, he still had a clean and good-looking appearance. Before he left, I carefully ironed his clothes and then helped him put them on. Shenku looked at me quietly with his head lowered. "Are you really not going? There's something to deal with at the company. If you don't go, aren't you angry when others make jokes about me and Gu Huan? I trust you." He looked at me for a long time and suddenly became a bit angry, saying angrily, "I don't know what you've been busy with recently. Whatever, I'm leaving." I didn't know why he was angry. After Shenku left, I found Jiangqing. Jiangqing was an alumnus of my university. After getting along with him these days, I found that he was a pretty good candidate. When Jiangqing heard what I said, his eyes were shining, and he strongly recommended his roommates to me. He promised repeatedly that he would never miss any clue. The word "watching" the excitement seemed to be engraved in the DNA of Chinese people, especially when it came to catching someone in the act of infidelity. At this time, videos couldn't be sent, so they relayed the scene to me using a beeper throughout the process. Jiangqing had a good writing style and was humorous. I was even amused by what he said. Some things, when you don't consider yourself an insider, you'll find that they are absurd and ridiculous. When we were at school, everyone thought that Gu Huan liked Shenku. She always liked to put the drumstick from her bowl into Shenku's rice bowl and always liked to follow Shenku. She also gave Shenku clothes many times. But Shinku didn't accept them, so she asked other boys to give these clothes to Shinku, pretending that they were clothes the boys didn't want anymore. That's what she said, but who would really be willing to give up such new brand name clothes? It was more of a tacit understanding between the two parties. At that time, I really thought they would get together, and I was also very sensible and hid my feelings well. Until the day she introduced me to Shinku and then pushed me to confess my love to Shinku. Everything happened so unexpectedly. The person I liked when I was young was standing in front of me, so I lost my mind and wasted my whole life. It's just that there's probably always the principle of first come, first served in relationships. Gu Huan came earlier than me, so no matter how much I did later, I was always one step behind. 10. The situation between the two of them on the beeper was still developing. They had drunk a lot of wine. I specifically instructed Jiangqing to book a hotel for them so that things could develop naturally later. That night, I sat on the sofa alone for a long time. I had sat on this sofa many times waiting for Shinku to come home. I was very afraid that something would really happen between them and that one day Shinku would no longer come back to this home. So I waited on this sofa night after night until he came home, but I never thought that one day I would be waiting on this sofa for evidence of their infidelity. However, instead of waiting for the evidence of infidelity, the door was knocked on. Jiangqing supported the drunk Shinku with a look of despair. There were vomit stains all over Shinku's clothes. He's drunk and keeps calling your name. I hurriedly asked the aunt to support Shinku. Jiangqing looked at his clothes with pity. This is my only suit. I promised repeatedly that I would definitely reimburse him, and then he left, looking unhappy. After the aunt took off Shinku's dirty clothes, she placed him on the sofa. I stood by the sofa and looked at him for a long time. I didn't know how I felt at that moment. On the one hand, I was worried that the subsequent divorce would be a bit troublesome, and on the other hand, I was glad that Shinku was at least not a person without any bottom line. I sighed. When I was about to leave, someone grabbed the hem of my clothes. I turned around and saw that Shinku's eyes were red, and he asked me aggrievedly, Yuntang, why don't you care about me anymore? I tried to pull the hem of my clothes away, but he held it tightly, as if he had to get an answer. Finally, I squatted down and looked at him quietly, and he looked at me too. But isn't this what you want, Shinku? Tell me what exactly you want. Shinku didn't answer. He once asked me the same question. And I didn't answer either. When I was a child, I hoped that my mother would love me more than my younger brother. Later, I hoped that Shinku would love me. And later, my daughter Anning told me that I should love myself. Now, I will get everything I want and no longer need others to bestow it on me. 11. I hurried to let Jiangqing choose a location, and the new production line began to be slowly laid out. He was as ambitious as I was. In short, our technology couldn't be restricted by other countries. However, I still didn't have a suitable plan on how to maximize my benefits in the divorce. Just then, Gu Huan came along. I originally planned to support Gu Huan, just like keeping an idle person who was of no use, but she didn't seem to be willing to be a canary and was determined to make a name for herself in the business world. She wasn't smart. And Shinku's mind also seemed to be out of order. He handed the contract to her. The whole team worked day and night for a week, but all their efforts were in vain because of her mistake. I finally couldn't hold back my anger and shouted angrily, "How many times have I told you to check the contract several times before sending it out?" Gu Huan looked at me with red eyes and said aggrievedly, "I didn't do it on purpose." I tried to hold back my anger but still couldn't help it. I threw the contract in my hand at Gu Huan's face. "Just because you didn't do it on purpose, can you escape your responsibility?" The A4 papers fell like snowflakes in the air, but Gu Huan suddenly looked at me and smiled, then fell backward. I had watched so many palace intrigue dramas in my previous life, and this trick was so cliched that I was stunned for a moment. Next, the brainless male protagonist should appear and ask me why I did that. A plan suddenly took shape in my mind at this moment. Sure enough, Shinku helped Gu Huan up and looked at me angrily. "It's just a business. If this one fails, there will always be the next one. Do you have to be so aggressive?" I walked forward and, in Gu Huan's extremely shocked expression, slapped Shinku neatly. "Are you sober now?" I was about to slap Gu Huan again. As expected, Shinku pushed me to protect Gu Huan. This was exactly the push I was waiting for. I took advantage of the force and directly bumped into the table. With a pale face, I called for someone to call an ambulance. Shinku hurriedly came to help me. With tears in my eyes, I grabbed his hand. "The baby." Shinku suddenly seemed at a loss, panicked, and was about to pick me up and run downstairs. 12. we had been looking forward to this child for a long time. When we were young, we were busy with our careers and ran around day and night. For the first child we conceived, before we even knew it had arrived, it was already gone. When we wanted to have a child, the child just wouldn't come for a long time. Over the years, every time I went to a temple, I would light a long burning lamp for that lost child, hoping that one day he would come back. So there was no better way than losing a child to gain a person's guilt, and guilt was an emotion that could be used to great effect. The hospital was a private hospital I had contacted a long time ago. As soon as I arrived at the hospital, I was immediately pushed into the operating room. The moment I was pushed into the operating room, Shinku knelt on the ground due to exhaustion. When I came out, he was still slumped on the ground. The doctor lowered his head and said to him apologetically, "I'm sorry, the child couldn't be saved." Shinku was stunned on the spot, his face as pale as a ghost. For the rest of the time, all I needed to do was close my eyes, turn my back, and pretend to be in a state of despair. During the few days I stayed in the hospital, Shinku stayed by my side every step of the way. Many nights, I heard the sound of him tossing and turning. On the day of my discharge, I looked at him. "Let's talk." He hurriedly went to pack things, avoiding the topic. "There are so many things and they haven't been packed yet. The doctor will come to check us out soon. Just lie here. Shelly will come to pick you up later. The wind outside is strong, you can't catch a cold." He kept packing things on his own, and I just watched him quietly. Finally, when all the things were finally packed and he finally had no reason to delay, "Can we talk properly now?" He remained silent. I sent him the document drafted by the lawyer. "If there's no problem, sign it." Shinku's lips moved, but in the end, he said nothing. Some things reach a certain point where both parties know there's no room for redemption. He signed his name without even looking at the contract. I left the company to him, split off one of his most promising departments, and took the talents there to Jiangcheng's new factory area. Standing on the highest point nearby and looking down at this place, construction vehicles and construction teams were working day and night. This place would be the most promising area in this city in the future. Everything was booming. 13. In the later stages of pregnancy, my belly got bigger day by day. Ningming in my belly was very well behaved during pregnancy. I hardly had any morning sickness. Instead, I was more energetic. On the day the company was officially established, Jiangcheng and I cut the ribbon together. The moment the red silk fell, Anning kicked me in the belly. I gently touched my belly and said with a smile, "You're happy for mom too, aren't you?" She kicked again, as if really answering my question. After the pregnancy reached full term, Jiangcheng looked at me like I was a bomb about to explode at any time. He didn't have the heart to work anymore and just stared at me every day. There was no way, so I could only go to the hospital in advance and stay there waiting for the delivery. The days of waiting for the delivery were like waiting for an old friend I hadn't seen for a long time. My daughter was like a friend to me. She spread a lot of advanced ideas to me. She took me to many places. She said I was her genius mother and that I really had talent, no matter what happened. She always stood by my side without hesitation. In this marriage, I had too many regrets and too much unwillingness, but the only thing I didn't regret was having my daughter. There was a very important meeting in the company in the middle, and I went back for a while. I originally thought my daughter's birthday was still a few days away. Unexpectedly, just after the meeting, my water broke. Jiangcheng was so flustered that he fell while going to drive. He prayed all the way, extremely anxious. I only had some mild contractions at the moment and sneered, "The child isn't yours. Why are you in such a hurry?" His face was a few shades paler than mine. "You're my money-making god. Nothing must go wrong." When we arrived at the hospital, I was pushed into the delivery room. The delivery went smoothly. This was the first time in this life that I saw my daughter, and tears welled up in my eyes instantly. Other newly born babies were all wrinkled, like little old men. My daughter was different. My daughter was really beautiful. I only had one daughter, and I wanted to give her the best things in the world. 14. When I was discharged from the hospital and went home, Shinku was waiting downstairs. He seemed to have been waiting there for a long time. Frost had formed on his eyelashes. When he saw the child in the aunt's arms, his eyes suddenly turned red, his voice trembled with joy. "This is our child." I motioned for the aunt to take the child inside and said to him calmly, "No, this is my child." Shinku wanted to hold the child, but the aunt had already closed the door. "The child needs a father's love." "Sure, Yuntang, you can't be so selfish." I looked at him and suddenly smiled. "There are plenty of people who can be like a father to my child. Which one are you?" you don't have any evidence to prove that this child is yours. According to the principle of business negotiation, be tough first and then soft. Finally, I earnestly persuaded him, why bother, you'll have your own child in the future, why hold on? Shinka looked at me for a long time, but I only want our child, the child between you and me. Gu Huan has gone abroad to settle down, I won't contact her again in the future. I had been waiting for this result for half of my life. It turned out that he knew the best way to deal with this matter, but he just pretended not to know. He let himself be immersed in his youth, enjoying the pleasure of being a hero saving the beauty. Even, did he really like Gu Huan that much? Does really liking someone make the other person seem like a third party? On one hand, he gave Gu Huan the wrong impression, and on the other hand, he never gave her any promise. At the beginning, Gu Huan didn't choose him but chose someone with better conditions. Whether there was resentment in his heart, only he knew. I suddenly found it a bit ridiculous. Indeed, the weak were easily bullied in this world. Jiangqing came at this time. He put his arm around my shoulder and winked at me quietly. Honey, this is the ex-husband who was entangled with that old classmate. He looks a bit old. How can the old be as good as the young? Honey, you must be bored these days. Let me give you a massage. I endured the shiver down my spine and responded to him. Shenke looked at me in disbelief and anger and punched Jiangqing. But after these years of living a life of comfort, how could Shenke be a match for a young man like Jiangqing? He fell to the ground and looked up at me. I put the fallen glasses back on for him. Go back. 15. After that day, I didn't see Shenke for a long time. Later, I found out that there were some problems with his company. Shenke really wasn't very suitable for doing business. He would be affected by various personal matters and affect the company. A factory supported the livelihoods of hundreds of employees. In the previous life, he had it too easy. Now that something had happened, there was no way to turn things around. I acquired his company and upgraded the original production lines. When the child was 3 years old, Jiangqing said he wanted to be the father of my child. I frowned and examined him, trying to understand what he was thinking. Tell me you're joking. Jiangqing shook his head. I took a deep breath. Are you out of your mind? Do you like being a step-father so much? Jiangqing looked at me pitifully. Seeing that I was angry, his voice became much smaller. It was just that day when Gu Huan went abroad to settle down. Shenke and I went to see her off together. Shenke stood on the platform of the plane, watching her back gradually disappear at the end. Exactly. I had a headache and my expression became much more serious. In business, we should talk about business. It's best not to mix other things among business partners. Jiangqing looked at me stubbornly. Don't worry, it won't affect the business. I was really at a loss and tried to persuade him euphemistically. Think about it in another way. I can have many men, but I only have you as a business partner. You're irreplaceable. Thinking like this, don't you feel honored? Jiangqing looked at me for a long time, with a bit of bitterness in his tone. I understand. We will be the best business partners. I held my daughter and stood on the highest point. Below was the newly built building, and in front of me was the gradually improving factory area. In the prime of my life, this was my golden age. Story 2. Before I turned 16, I was the pampered daughter of the Song family, adored by my parents and favored by my brother, living a carefree life. However, everything changed when Song Ru came to us with a DNA test proving that a nurse had switched us at birth. She was the real heiress, and I was merely an interloper in the nest. I had thought about leaving, but my biological parents had already passed away, and Mrs. Song couldn't bear to see me orphaned, so she formally adopted me. My adoptive parents treated me well, my brother didn't neglect me, and Song Ru never made things difficult for me. I was grateful, but later, Song Ru got into a dispute with a fellow actor backstage at a drama set, and during the argument, the actor fell down the stairs and became vegetative. There were no cameras, someone had to take the blame, and I, who had witnessed everything, was there. With tears, my adoptive mother approached me, begging me to take the blame for Song Ru. Song Ru knelt before me, banging her head on the ground and slapping her own face, apologizing to me. The family was heartbroken, so I nodded. I took the blame, went to prison, and suffered greatly. At first, the Song family would visit me, tears of guilt or apology in their eyes, but gradually, the visits stopped. Once, during a prison event, the warden asked about our plans after release. I thought long and hard before writing down sincerely, after I'm released, I want to see my parents. A fellow inmate laughed at the simplicity of my wish. Your parents will definitely come to pick you up. How could you not see them? I just smiled and said nothing. But when I was actually released, no one came, only Mr. Song's assistant took me to the airport and handed me a large sum of money. He said nothing, but I understood everything. My parents didn't want me anymore. The Song family had abandoned me. I didn't take the money. It wasn't about being noble, I just didn't want to owe anything to the Song family anymore. The Song family had raised me for over 20 years, and I had served 5 years in prison for their daughter. We were even. I rented a place. Wore out my shoes looking for a job that didn't mind my criminal record, but after just half a month, I was fired. After much questioning, the manager finally admitted hesitantly, "You've upset someone you shouldn't have." I was stunned and speechless. Who else could it be but the Song family? That day, I walked the streets with my bag in the drizzling, cool rain, my face and body wet with the drizzle. As I passed by the central square, Song Ru's live broadcast was playing on the big screen. I stopped and looked up. On the award stage, she was radiantly beautiful, joyously showcasing her glamour. The camera panned to Mr. and Mrs. Song, their eyes brimming with tears as they looked at her. It was as if they were gazing at a rare treasure, their eyes filled with love. For some reason, I suddenly remembered the first visit in prison, when my adoptive mother, seeing how gaunt I had become, tearfully promised me, "After you are released from prison, Mom will take care of you for the rest of your life. Mom loves you." But when I saw her for the last time 2 years ago, all that was left in her expression was a faint sense of guilt. She said, "Tang-in, Ru is getting engaged to He Wenjin. She really likes him. After you get out of prison, could you leave this place to avoid the He family discovering the past?" He Wenjin, the crown prince of the He family. There are TVs in prison, and occasionally I hear about the deep love between Song Ru and He Wenjin. Everyone says that He Wenjin, a well-known playboy in the circle, settled down for Song Ru. He stepped into the entertainment industry, which he once scorned, to pave the way for her, connect her with resources, and personally present her with awards. I sometimes envy Song Ru, envy her for having loving parents and a devoted boyfriend. In just over 20 years, she has reaped both career and love. Not like me, no parents, no career, no lover, also, no one to love. As for marrying He Wenjin, that was an accident. After being fired, I returned to my hometown and worked as a waitress in a restaurant. It was busy. I was serving beer to a customer when a drunk man, handsy and rude, made me frown and slap him. Enraged, he kicked me to the ground. Food and beer spilled all over me. It burned. The man, still not pacified and cursing, was about to strike again, but suddenly he fell silent. I opened my eyes to meet his bright, starry eyes. He Wenjin gave a lazy, insincere smile. "Song Tang-in, so you really are here." I got up, shook off the food scraps from my clothes, nodded at him, and tried to walk away, but after just a few steps, I heard his voice from behind, "Seeing you so miserable, how about marrying me?" I turned around in astonishment. "Have you finally gone mad? Serious?" He Wenjin eyed me, his gaze dark and emotionless, but his words were earnest. "To tell you the truth, your sister dumped me, and I'm in a foul mood, and you've been pushed to this point by the Song family. We might as well be called a league of victims." The street lamp flickered twice and then went out. I couldn't see his face clearly, only heard him scoff, the tip of his cigarette glowing red. "Since you have nothing now, marrying me isn't a loss for you. What's there to fear?" I thought about it, didn't say a word. He just quietly waited for me, until a cool breeze blew, making me shiver instinctively. He Wenjin took off his high-end custom coat and draped it over my shoulders. In an instant, all I could smell was the faint scent of his tobacco. I said, "Okay." When the news of our marriage spread, everyone was shocked. They all said that He Wenjin married me just to spite Song Ru. At the wedding, when He Wenjin said he was willing, I noticed that Song Ru was crying under the stage, losing her composure as she left the scene. I glanced at the man, but he just smiled and didn't even look her way. It was as if he had never loved, as if he truly didn't care. After the wedding, He Wenjin treated me very well. He arranged a secretarial job for me so that we were together all the time. When I asked him why, he just laughed it off lightly. "I can't trust leaving a beautiful woman like you at home alone, afraid that some thief might steal you away. If that happened, wouldn't I be at a great loss?" I chided him for not being serious, and I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. During the years I was in prison, I suffered a lot, and my body couldn't withstand any more hardships. A common cold or cough that might be minor to others could turn into a severe illness for me. He Wenjin hired renowned doctors to treat me, and I got somewhat better. By my sickbed, he held my hand, earnest and devout. "Song Tang-in, I bought you Your life is mine, you can't die before me, childish words, but seeing the faint bitterness in his eyes, I ultimately nodded. I didn't understand why he was hurt, but I had long since learned not to ask, not to disturb. All right, until death do us part. But in the end, the one who didn't keep the promise wasn't me. It was He Wenjin, madam. Mr. He passed away at 3 in the morning yesterday due to a major car accident, and efforts to save him were unsuccessful. Please accept our condolences. Pushing open the morgue door, He's parents were already crying inconsolably, looking at He Wenjin's pale, lifeless face. I thought to myself, heaven favored him, giving him an enviable family background, looks, and capabilities. But why did it stingily grant him only 34 years? What a pity, what a pity. I personally handled He Wenjin's funeral. Throughout the 5 years of our marriage, many people never had high hopes for our union. Song-ru, out of love turned bitter, was always waiting to see my downfall, yet, no one expected that He Wenjin would leave all his assets and shares to me. The He family had no objections, only, when they left, their backs were hunched, no longer possessing their former vitality. A week later, Chen, He Wenjin's lawyer, brought me the inheritance transfer documents. And as he was leaving, he handed me a voice recorder. This was Mr. He's belonging. It has been repaired, and I think you might need it. Song Tangin. In the voice recorder, the man's voice was clear yet husky, tinged with a bit of static, making it raspier. I didn't marry you because I was trying to spite Song-ru. I married you because I liked you. I was stunned for a moment, yet my heart remained calm. As if I had anticipated this, He Wenjin chuckled softly. Perhaps you've forgotten. But we've met before. Back then, you were the untouchable heroine of the school, extremely intelligent, the teacher's favorite, and my mentor would always talk about you. Every time he finished chatting with your teacher, he would come to me, puffed up with anger, and say, He Wenjin, I'm annoyed with you now, stay away from me. He imitated his mentor's tone, sounding especially endearing. I chuckled subconsciously, but the next moment, I slowly reined it in. He Wenjin continued. I used to dislike you, yet I couldn't help but keep my eyes on you. It's like I had a bit of a masochistic streak, haha, but then, you ended up in jail for what they called intentional injury. I didn't believe it, I had to investigate it myself, but unfortunately, the Song family had cleaned up all the evidence so thoroughly, so, I turned my attention to Song-ru. It turns out, the love story between He Wenjin and Song-ru, which everyone talked about, was merely an excuse he used to uncover the truth behind my imprisonment. What He Wenjin didn't expect was that Song-ru was tight-lipped, but eventually, he still found some traces. I suddenly remember, before we got married, He Wenjin once asked me excitedly, Ian, do you want revenge? No, I shook my head. It's all settled. Years later, I finally understand. That day he must have discovered the truth. He sought the truth for me, and for me, he kept that truth hidden. It turns out, it was all because of me. The emotions in my eyes violently trembled, my whole body couldn't stop shaking, and tears fell drop by drop. 07. But speaking of which, my acting must have been very, very good, so I deceived everyone, including you. Do you know how adorable your expression and eyes were when I asked you to marry me? Never mind, I've spoken too much again. Actually, I've always wanted to ask you. He Wenjin coughed, his usual pride replaced by a rare shyness of a young man. Song Tangin, can I, perhaps, also have a moment to like me? In this lifetime, I might not hear it, but in the next life, when I come to find you, you can tell me then. With the screeching of a sudden break and the noisy screams of the crowd, I clearly heard his last words. He said, Song Tangin, I really, really, really like you a lot. His tone even carried a hint of laughter. The suppressed emotions suddenly collapsed at that moment. In the empty living room, there were lilies that He Wenjin had brought home a few days ago still on the table. I've always liked lilies. He presented them to me as if offering a treasure. Ian, do they smell nice? I picked them out one by one just for you. Ian, from now on, I'll take care of replacing the flowers at home. At that time, the subtle laughter in his eyes, like gentle starlight. How could I say no? But the one who made the promise, lied. He left first, and took away the last vitality of the lilies. The warm sun shone through the floor-to-ceiling windows onto my shoulder. I reached out to touch it, but it only felt cold. To this day, I finally glimpsed the vast and secret love that He Wenjin hid beneath the ice. But, it seems too late. 08, Lawyer Chen met Mrs. He again a week later. He came to pick up the inheritance transfer document. He had followed He Wenjin for many years and had seen Mrs. He many times. In his memory, Mrs., he was always dignified. Gently smiling like a jade Buddha on a pedestal, coolly observing the world's tumult, neither happy, nor angry, nor moved. Even when she learned of He Wenjin's death, she was momentarily stunned, yet her eyes remained dry. He Wenjin had been so kind to her, yet, all he received from her was a single tear. Attorney Chen had once felt that He Wenjin deserved better, but this time, as soon as he entered the living room, he saw Mrs. He holding several bunches of wilted lilies. Her complexion paler than the falling snow. Upon seeing him, she didn't even offer a courtesy smile, but stated coldly, "Attorney Chen, donate his assets to the orphanage, I don't want them." There was no room for discussion. As he was leaving, Attorney Chen couldn't help but turn back and ask, "Madam, did you ever love Mr. He, Mrs. He?" just smiled, but did not answer. Years later, Mrs. He became a philanthropist widely covered by the media, having supported countless orphans. When he saw her again, it was at her bedside. She was only 45 years old, yet her hair was completely white. At that moment, she looked out the window as if she saw someone, her face showing a hint of girlish naivety, and she said, I always have. Ian, please save your sister, she's still so young, she shouldn't be going to jail." "Sister, I really know I was wrong, I didn't mean it, I don't want to go to jail, I'm a big star. Going to jail would ruin my life." When I woke up from the darkness, what I heard were loud cries. My head was throbbing as I slowly opened my eyes to see everything clearly. Song-ru was kneeling on the ground, crying her heart out. Song's father was holding her, comforting her with tenderness, and Song's mother, gripping my hand tightly, her face covered in tears, her voice choked but very serious. "Ian, would you go to jail for your sister?" I silently looked at her, as if encouraging her. Song's mother gritted her teeth and said, "Ian, there were no cameras at the scene, only you and Aru were present, and the paparazzi only captured a silhouette that can't be identified. Just admit that you accidentally pushed He Xiaoxiao. The police won't find out anything, don't worry. Once you're in prison, Mom will make sure everything is taken care of and you won't suffer. After you're released, the Song family will take care of you for life." She had said the same thing in my previous life, but that promise expired after just 1 year. After the guarantee expired, I was kicked out of a single room and, because of my looks, I suffered bullying and retaliation, beatings, insults, even poisoning. It was unbearable, but no one saw me, until I was hospitalized due to nitrite poisoning from the food. Song's mother came to my bedside that day. She looked down at me with an impatient expression. "After all, it's a prison, not a resort. It's inevitable to suffer. Tang Yin, don't be so delicate. Aru is going abroad for a business trip soon. I'm worried and probably won't have time to visit you in the future." After that, I never saw her again. Seeing Song's mother's tearful face now, I believed her words were sincere at the moment, but sincerity can change. My feelings of guilt and self-reproach eventually turned into a deeper fear as time passed. I gently pulled away from Mrs. Song's grasp and said, "No, I can't do this." Mrs. Song was taken aback, probably not expecting me, who she thought was as docile as a lamb, to refuse her. But when I spoke again, I was serious and resolute. "Mom, I appreciate that you raised me for 20 years, but I don't want to sacrifice my own life because of that. Call me selfish or an ingrate if you will, but I refuse to take the blame for her. This life, reborn, I am not here to repeat the same mistakes. In my previous life, He Wenjin saved me. This time, I am going to save myself, and then, I will walk cleanly and dignifiedly to He Wenjin's side." My refusal enraged Father Song, who scolded me for being ungrateful, having enjoyed the benefits of the Song family for so many years yet unwilling to give anything in return. Mrs. Song and Song-ru cried bitterly. Seeing that neither soft nor hard tactics worked on me, they worried I might flee, so they locked me in a room. Only my brother, Song Chingri, remained silent throughout. Just like in my previous life, Mrs. Song took away my phone, not knowing that I had a spare. I turned on the spare phone. Yesterday's news that He Xiaoxiao was seriously injured and had become comatose was trending online. There were few clues. Only a paparazzi had captured a blurry photo of a figure from behind, and mentioned. Song-ru and her sister were alone with He Xiaoxiao for a while. The police were probably already on their way. As I flipped through the spare phone, I subconsciously dialed a number. Seeing the familiar digits, I hesitated but ultimately did not make the call. Somehow, I felt afraid that the person on the other end of the phone wouldn't be the one I knew, and more terrified that once I woke from this dream, I might never see him again, in my past life, after he Wenjin died. I regularly paid his phone bill. In the quiet of the night, I would text him, about everyday things or just to vent. I would always receive a reply, "Ian, I'm here." It was his automated response, set up before his death. How could someone be so cruel, cruelly holding on to my heart, making me unable to forget him for 10, 20, 30 years? I got up and opened the curtains. The warm sun shone through the window, bringing a hint of coolness. I saw the police outside the door. And the secretive glance from Father Song. With trembling hands, I finally sent out a message. "He Wenjin, won't you come and save me, Mrs. Song?" Initially tried to stop me from facing the police, hoping to solidify the evidence against me, but I forcefully knocked on the door. Facing the police's questions, I ignored Mrs. Song's pleading looks and responded to each one. In my previous life, I was convicted because I confessed to the crime and even erased evidence of my alibi, but this time, I won't be so foolish. The supposed favor of the past 20-odd years had already been exhausted in my previous life. Not holding hatred is already my limit, and compared to my calm composure, Song-ru appeared even more panicked and guilty. Right and wrong are clear at a glance. When Song-ru was taken away, Song's mother cried hysterically, and Song's father, with a gloomy face, occasionally glanced at me with the eyes of someone who had just lost a daughter, wishing he could tear me to pieces. They both followed Song-ru as she left. I stood quietly, watching silently. Then, Song Chunri came to my side and said in a deep voice, "The Song family can't shelter you anymore. Ian, you should leave this place." I looked up at him, pausing for a second as my eyes met his reddened ones. "Don't you blame me?" Song Chunri paused, not answering directly but instead gazing distantly towards the direction of the police car. His voice was as light as a breeze. "Ian, you are also my sister." He had said the same thing in a past life. He had advised me not to take the blame. I asked him why, and he looked down at me, his gaze as soft as wind and rain, tender and pitying. "Because you are my sister, too." Yet, I had ignored his advice before, but this time, I decided to listen to him. Song's mother and father probably hated me to the bone now. Staying would only add to the troubles. I said earnestly, "Brother, take care of yourself." Song Chunri slightly curved his lips, his voice raspy. "Ian, live well for yourself." I packed my belongings and left the Song house. Looking ahead, the wind blew, swirling fallen leaves around. At this moment, the sunlight fell on me, warm and comforting. Suddenly, a figure rushed in front of me, his voice frantic. "Song Tangin, you're okay, right?" I was startled for a moment. Looking up, the man was wearing a black shirt, his frame lean and tall, his eyes deep. He stood drowned in the morning sun, appearing as though he was standing in the light. His handsome face lazy and nonchalant, but at this moment, his face was slightly pale, and he looked at me anxiously, only relaxing when he saw I was unharmed. His gaze lingered on my suitcase for 2 seconds before he spoke again, hesitating. "Song Tangin, did you run away from home?" It was He Wenjin, to be precise. It was a much younger He Wenjin. Memories of the past quickly flashed through my mind. There were moments of him looking at me tenderly, him yawning lazily, him holding my hand as we stepped into marriage, all culminating in the evening we first met. He seemed relaxed but was actually tightly clenching his hand. He asked me, "Song Tangin, would you marry me?" At this moment, my heart thudded rapidly, and I couldn't bear to take my eyes off him. Until he widened his eyes in panic, exclaiming, "Song Tangin, why are you crying? Who has hurt you?" Was I crying? Why would I be crying? Seeing him again, I should have been happy. But, the emotions suppressed in my heart from a past life all turned into tears, streaming from my heart. I couldn't stop the tears. I cried, and He Wenjin just quietly stayed with me. After a long while, he pulled me into his embrace, his voice low and soft, with a hint of indulgent helplessness. As if cajoling a beloved child, he said, "Ian, don't cry. Who has bullied you? Shall I avenge you?" "No." I clutched at his sleeve and shook my head. "No revenge, in this life. I just want to be together with you properly. I don't want anything else." I followed He Wenjin back to his apartment. It was cold and empty. That was his style. In my previous life, after He Wenjin had passed away, I lived here for a long time. It was a way of remembering, and perhaps reminiscing. It's hard to explain. I was already familiar with the layout here, but I didn't notice that as I confidently walked into the depths, turned a corner, pushed open a door, and entered the bathroom. He Wenjin's gaze darkened for a moment, looking at my reflection in the mirror, my eyes red and swollen, my appearance disheveled. I sighed softly, feeling somewhat embarrassed. I had resolved to face He Wenjin with dignity, yet every encounter, I ended up looking so wretched, but it didn't matter. He Wenjin loved me so much. He wouldn't disdain me, never. That was the most certain and sure thing in my life. Stepping out of the bathroom, He Wenjin was leaning against the door waiting for me. He asked me, "Why are you crying?" I candidly recounted everything that had happened just before. There was nothing to hide between us. After listening, He Wenjin was momentarily stunned. "So, the Song family wants you to take the blame." I nodded, but I refused. "This matter won't end so simply. Although He Xiaoxiao is severely injured and hasn't woken up, and there's no solid evidence, we can only wait for her to wake up to take the blame. Even though Song Ru is now considered a major suspect by the police, you are not without suspicion." As he spoke, his expression grew darker. I suddenly spoke up to interrupt him. "He Wenjin, I'm a bit hungry." His gaze paused, then landed on me. Seeing my clear eyes without a hint of nervousness, he sighed helplessly. "I'll cook." I nodded. In my previous life, I had a severe stomach condition, so He Wenjin specially learned to cook medicinal meals and cooked daily himself. He was very skilled. I had once thought he was born with cooking skills, but now, seeing the lumped noodles he served, I suddenly realized that He Wenjin, a privileged young master, had always been served by others. How could he have known how to cook from the start? He learned for me. It was always for me. I picked up the chopsticks and took a bite, quite salty. But He Wenjin looked at me expectantly. "Is it good?" His eyes twinkled with tiny stars, so beautiful, just like the man in my memories who smiled and asked if I liked him. I lowered my head, holding back the sour emotions, and nodded vigorously. "It's delicious. And, I really like it." The last bowl of noodles ended up in the trash can. Because I cried, He Wenjin thought it was because they were too hard to eat. He picked up the chopsticks and took a bite, then, the next second, it went into the trash can. He frowned, clearly dissatisfied. "I want to cry too. It's so awful." "Very cute." It made me laugh out loud, dispersing the gloom between my brows. I encouraged, "It's okay, your cooking will definitely be delicious in the future." "Why?" I smiled and said, "Because, I will be your only diner in the future." The man's eyes twinkled, his gaze thoughtful and inscrutable. He said in a deep voice, "Song Tangyin, what will you be to me in the future?" I was momentarily stunned. Looking up at him, I met his dark, confident, and certain eyes. He had guessed it, of course. He was always so clever. "Perhaps." I paused for a moment before slowly saying, "A lover, someone in love." I thought He Wenjin might be taken aback or might frown and press further, but instead, he relaxed his expression, his eyes slightly crinkling and his lips curving up, shedding his casual indifference. Appearing utterly sincere, he said, "That's good then, that's good then." Seeing the mole by his eye tremble with his smile, I suddenly wanted to taste what it was like. Thinking it, I did it. I lifted my foot and kissed him. Under his astonished gaze, I grinned. "He Wenjin, I really like you. I forgot to tell you in my last life. This life, I'll tell you, I like you. I've always really liked you." Before going to sleep, He Wenjin tucked me in. "If you get scared, call me, and I'll come right over." Before he left, he also placed the amulet he wore around his neck into my palm. I knew this. He Wenjin was frail as a child, and his mother got this amulet for him, to protect him as he grew up. Now, he was using it to ensure my safety. Clutching the jade pendant, my heartbeat was erratic, and my cheeks were burning hot. Only when He Wenjin slowly walked out and closed the door did I realize my face felt a bit sore from smiling. My heart felt swollen too. He Wenjin was always like this. Seeming like a playboy who never took anything seriously, yet he was actually the most meticulous and gentle person. And that night, I couldn't sleep until the middle of the night, a bit excited and a bit afraid. I glanced at the phone by my pillow, thought for a moment, wondering if He Wenjin had already fallen asleep. I was afraid to disturb him with a call, maybe just send a text instead. "Are you asleep?" Just as I sent it, feeling it was a bit redundant and about to retract it, suddenly there were footsteps at the door. Then, the sound of the door opening. When I opened my eyes again, He Wenjin was already standing by my window bed. The moonlight through the window fell on He Wenjin's shoulders, softening his sharp features into a gentle warmth. He leaned down and gently asked, "Ah In, what's wrong?" Less than a minute after sending the message, he was already here. He was truly following through on his words. He said he would come, no matter how late. He always comes when I need him. Perhaps, like me, he too found no sleep last night. All because he was afraid I might truly need him. Thinking of this, my heart clenched tightly, it hurt and felt suffocating. I ended up staying at He Wenjin's house for half a month. The most interesting part was waiting for He Wenjin to come home. He would be in the kitchen, showcasing his culinary skills, while I leaned against the doorway, quietly watching him. Sometimes, I'd lend him a hand, under the warm yellow light, with his hair slicked back. His handsome yet somewhat immature face appeared softer, enveloped in a gentle aura. At this time, he hadn't yet graduated from university. Compared to the resolute and decisive CEO he in my previous life, he now seemed more naive and tender. This was a time I had never been part of. Never known. Occasionally, he would look up at me, his lips curving into a gentle smile. The clear love in his eyes was impossible to hide. He really liked me a lot. In that moment, I realized that in the times I was unaware, He Wenjin truly cared deeply for me. My heart tightened suddenly, emotions flooding through me and culminating in a long, deep sigh. He Wenjin's cooking skills improved day by day. The Song family could no longer contain themselves. I had thought that the Song family wouldn't just let Song Ru admit guilt and go to prison, but I didn't expect that they would bribe He Xiaoxia's agent to accuse me as the real instigator. Such shamelessness, such despicableness. In front of the cameras, Song's mother revealed the truth about mine and Song Ru's origins. Tears streaming down her face, she cried, "I never imagined Ayin would intentionally hurt someone. She has always been such a good girl, but now to avoid punishment. She even framed her own sister. Although Aru is my own daughter, she hasn't enjoyed many blessings in life. Now she's even being falsely accused and sent to prison. It really breaks my heart." Song Ru nestled in her arms, clumsily wiping away her tears while her own streamed down her cheeks. "Mom, don't be sad. My sister must have been confused when she made the mistake. I'm willing to take her place if it means she can take care of you." The mother and daughter, wailing pitifully in front of the media, looked extremely sorrowful. "People who make mistakes should take responsibility. You shouldn't have to suffer for what isn't your fault." Finally, Song's father, looking stern and righteous in front of the cameras, declared, "Song Tangyin, the Song family has raised you for so many years. We hope you will come forward and atone for your wrongdoing." Once the video was released, the internet erupted with condemnation against me. Such an ungrateful person. She enjoyed the good life of a fake heiress and now lets the Song family's own daughter take the blame. Is she even human? Song Tangyin, you vile woman, dare to do but not to own up. Utterly disgusting. Indeed, the Song family treated you too well, and you repay kindness with enmity. Truly despicable. The criticism continued. My private account was exposed, and I received a flood of messages every day. Even former classmates called to inquire about my situation. Those who cared, I occasionally replied. Those who wanted me to confess, I simply blocked. Despite the ongoing external turmoil, I did nothing. No matter how much the Song family schemed or agitated, as long as the police did not summon me, I am innocent. Why should I complicate things and fall into a trap of self-justification? That day, He Wenjin received a message and rushed home, immediately saying, "I can help you." I smiled and replied, "No need, I'll handle it myself," but I stopped mid-sentence. For some reason, I suddenly remembered something that happened in my past life, a fierce argument. Though it was called fierce, it was actually just because He Wenjin treated me too well, which made many jealous. Rumors about me going to jail were spread behind my back, and the internet was filled with curses. In the end, it was all about me not being worthy of He Wenjin. He Wenjin wanted to help me clear up the rumors. He wanted to attend the press conference with me and take legal action against the gossipers. But I felt it was unnecessary. I had been to prison before, and although I was innocent, I didn't want He Wenjin to also be subjected to criticism because of me. This angered He Wenjin. He coldly questioned me, asking if I truly cared about him, if I saw him as my husband. But I felt that a cold treatment was better, thinking he was just being unreasonable and making a fuss. That day, the living room was dark, lit only by the dying light of the sunset. After a long silence, he scoffed and softly said, "You walk through life with integrity, and I won't allow others to point fingers at you. Do you understand?" Song Tangyin. I remained silent, refusing to respond. As I was leaving, I looked back and could see his solitary figure. I felt some regret then. I thought, maybe I should have just agreed with him. It was just a small matter, after all. But I never imagined that would be our last encounter. After his death, I kept asking myself, why didn't I accompany him? Why didn't I tell him my feelings? The bouquets of lilies, his meticulous care, his focused gaze. Was I really unaware of his love? I clearly knew, but I was a bastard who took advantage of his love. I was sure He Wenjin would stay with me till the end, recklessly indulging in his love, yet, I never tried to soothe his anxious heart, until he died. Then I understood love, but for the love realized too late. Nothing is more cruel than having no chance to express it, no chance to get closer, before losing it all forever. No more chances. Returning to this life is a chance given by heaven to make amends. All the dignity of love, the shyness, the gradual progression, I can't bother with it, nor can I learn it. I just want to be with him. I just want, most want, still want. So I hugged He Wenjin tightly, then kissed him on the lips. Between our locked lips, I gasped softly and said, "Alright, you help me, here's a reward in advance." He Wenjin was taken aback for a moment, then more passionately pushed me down onto the couch. 2 hours later, I was too tired to get up, but I held on tightly to He Wenjin, refusing to let go. Looking at him, he was clearly too tired to keep his eyes open, yet he still didn't want to close them. I'm still a bit scared that this is all a dream. He leaned over and gently kissed my cheek and forehead. "I'm here, Ian, go to sleep. I'll always be here," I murmured an and could no longer hold back. Plunging into darkness, I suddenly woke up in a pitch-black room. Dressed in an indigo nightgown, lying in a bedroom with black and white decor, there was a cup of cold water on the nightstand, next to it a white pill. I looked around, the room was empty and cold, without that familiar person. The pain suddenly shot through me, memories flooded my mind, scene by scene, finally freezing on that electrifying husky voice. "Ian, I really, really like you." So, it was a dream, I suddenly realized. It was truly a beautiful dream. I clutched my chest tightly. My hands and feet ice cold, as if ensnared in a net, slowly being deprived of my breath, tears dripping down. "Ian, what's wrong?" Someone suddenly pushed open the door and came over to me, looking at me anxiously, with tear-blurred eyes. I raised my hand to wipe away the tears, finally seeing the man clearly. "Ian, it's okay. I just went out to handle some matters with the Song family. I found the agent bribed by the Song family, and also the janitor who happened to pass by that day. He saw Songru pushing He Xiaoxiao down. Songru has been convicted, and I am suing the Song family for framing you. Ian, no one will frame you anymore." The man gently patted my back while telling me everything that had happened while I was asleep. I looked up at him, leaning gently into his embrace, listening to the clear, strong heartbeat in his chest. I finally smiled. "It's okay, I missed you," I softly told him. "He Wenjin, have I ever told you? I really, really like you a lot." The man chuckled and held me tightly in his arms. He said, "I like Ian too." After many years, people in love finally confessed their love to each other. Mountains and seas, time and space, none could hinder the reunion of those in love. He Wenjin's side story. I am reborn. After my rebirth, the first thing I did was go to the Song family, yet I found the Song family still harmonious. Song Tangyin was still the coldest, smartest goddess of the academy, not the seemingly gentle but inwardly deeply scarred Mrs. He of the past life. Ian had no sense of security, prison was too harsh, she was envied and hated, often tormented by other prisoners in the middle of the night. Even after being released, the slightest noise would wake her, and then she couldn't sleep again, sitting up all night. Yet even so, she could perform her duties flawlessly by day. My Ian, fragile as snow yet resilient as pine, it seems a single ray of light could melt her, but in fact, she is indestructible. I love her, and I admire her. At the school's freshman ceremony, Song Tangyin, as the student council president, went up to the podium to speak. I sat in the audience, looking at her from a distance. The girl wore a uniform, her hair in a ponytail, revealing a beautiful yet youthful face. She effortlessly radiated her beauty and showcased her knowledge, captivating many not just with her looks but also her words. At that moment, Ain was the bright, innocent top student from his memories. Standing on the podium, the wind brushed her hair and the sunlight seemed to favor her, casting a soft golden glow upon her. Suddenly, I wished that time could stand still right at this moment. I hoped that his Ain would never have to endure any hardships. Always remain innocent, where smiles are just smiles, and sorrows are just sorrows, unaffected by rumors, untouched by mockery. How wonderful that would be. I had already known that Songru would face trouble, so I had installed a surveillance camera in that secluded corridor. I was about to release the footage when I received a distress message from Song Tangyin. In that instant, I knew, Ain was back. I wanted to know her stance this time. how she would handle the Song family affairs, but this time, she refused to take the blame. She left the Song family. I saw her quietly dragging her luggage, walking alone on the deserted plane tree-lined boulevard. When she saw me, she blossomed into a smile. It made me feel, yes, the sunlight was so warm that day. I took her home, pretending to be oblivious to everything. After much effort, I made a bowl of colorless noodles. Watching her stunned expression, gradually, I guided her to realize my love for her, seeing her heart flutter for me. I should have been overjoyed, but seeing her tears at that moment, I felt a pang of heartache. Never mind, I thought, loving her is enough. Whether she loves me back or not, what does it really matter? But in the end, she threw herself into my arms, clinging tightly to me, telling me, "He Wenjin, I really, really, really like you." At that moment, it felt as though flowers were blooming all around. I fought back the tears, responding word by word to my princess. "I do too, Song Tangin, I really, really, really like you too." People say, those who love each other will eventually meet. I believe, on the day we meet, the sunlight must be warm,